Hey everyone, I'm Peter Stories here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now settle in, get cozy, and let yourself relax. My name is David, and I saw Amanda for the last time 3 meters ahead of me on the trail before she simply disappeared. That was 6 hours ago, and my rational mind still refuses to accept what I witnessed. People don't just vanish into thin air. There's always an explanation, a hidden ravine, a medical emergency, equipment failure. 23 years as a ranger in Olympic National Forest taught me that much. But Amanda Chen, 24 years old, graduate student researching fungal networks, had been walking steadily ahead of me on the Ho River Trail when she stopped at Reflection Pool. I remember the exact moment. 2:47 p.m., October 13th, 2018. The autumn light was filtering through the old-growth canopy, creating dancing shadows on the moss-covered ground. My Garmin GPS showed we were 3.2 miles from the trailhead, elevation 547 feet. Amanda had been documenting my mycorrhizal relationships all morning, her North Face day pack loaded with sample containers and a high-end Canon camera. She knelt beside the pool, a perfectly circular depression in the granite, maybe 8 feet across, filled with dark water that reflected the towering Sitka spruces above. I was checking my radio for the hourly check-in when I heard her gasp. "David, look at this!" I glanced up from my Motorola XTN 600. Amanda was leaning over the water, her reflection wavering on the surface, but something was wrong with the reflection. It showed her face, yes, but the expression was different, terrified, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide with horror. "What the hell?" I muttered, taking a step closer. The moment I looked away to secure my radio to my belt couldn't have been more than 3 seconds. Amanda was gone. Not fallen in the water, gone. Not stumbled into the brush, gone. Gone. The pool's surface was perfectly still, not a single ripple. Her day pack sat exactly where she'd placed it, camera lens cap still off, notebook open to her neat handwriting. Sample 47B, probable armillaria solidips fruiting body cluster, GPS coordinates 47.86006 degree N, 123.9348 W. That's when the real nightmare began. I've spent the last 6 hours searching in an ever-widening grid pattern, following every protocol the National Park Service drilled into me. I've called her name until my throat went raw. I've radioed for backup. Search and rescue is en route, but the earliest they'll reach us is dawn. My iPhone shows no signal, as usual in this part of the forest. The temperature has dropped 15 degrees since afternoon, and my breath now forms visible clouds in the cooling air. But it's not the cold that's making my hands shake as I fill out the incident report by flashlight. It's the reflections, every puddle, every still section of stream, every piece of standing water I've encountered in the last 6 hours has shown me something that shouldn't be there. In Cascade Creek, I saw Amanda waving frantically, mouthing words I couldn't hear. In a rain puddle on the trail, her face appeared for just a moment, eyes pleading. Each time I look directly at the water, she's gone. My rational mind has explanations. Stress hallucinations, guilt-induced paranoia, retinal after-images from staring at my flashlight. I've seen search fatigue before. Experienced rangers start seeing things after 18 hours of intensive searching. But 6 hours shouldn't be enough to break a veteran like me. The worst part is the laughter. It started around sunset, a distant giggling that I initially attributed to campers somewhere in the backcountry. But campers don't venture this deep into the old-growth section, especially not this late in the season. The laughter comes from different directions, sometimes seeming to echo from directly above in the canopy, sometimes from beneath the forest floor itself. It sounds like a child laughing at a birthday party, high and delighted. Innocent. But there's something underneath it, something that makes the hair on my arms stand up and sends cold tingles down my spine. I've been a skeptic my entire life. When other rangers told stories around the campfire about strange encounters in the deep woods, I'd roll my eyes and change the subject. Ghost stories are for tourists and rookie rangers trying to impress each other. The forest has plenty of real dangers without inventing supernatural ones. Hypothermia, falls, predators, getting lost. Those are the things that kill people out here. But standing in this circle of LED light, surrounded by darkness so complete it seems solid, listening to phantom laughter while Amanda's terrified reflection stares up at me from every pool of water, my skepticism is starting to crack. My wife Sarah texted me at 3 p.m. "How's the research escort going? Home for dinner?" I haven't responded. How do I explain that a graduate student disappeared in front of me in broad daylight? How do I tell her that I'm seeing things that can't possibly be real? Our daughter Emma, 8 years old, has a soccer game tomorrow morning. I promised I'd be there. Promised I wouldn't miss another one because of work. The thought of Emma scanning the sidelines for her dad while I'm out here, failing to bring someone else's daughter home safe, it's tearing me apart inside. Amanda's parents called her 3 times since 4 p.m. Each call went to voicemail. I listened to her phone ringing from inside her abandoned day pack, the sound obscenely cheerful in the growing darkness. The 3rd time, I heard her mother's voice through the speaker. "Amanda, honey, call us back. We're starting to worry." I should have answered. Should have started the most horrible conversation any parent can imagine. But I couldn't form the words. How do you tell a mother that you watched her daughter vanish into thin air? The temperature on my thermometer reads 38 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. Hypothermia becomes a serious concern below 35. If Amanda is alive out there, and God, I have to believe she is, she's wearing only hiking pants and a fleece jacket. She won't survive the night in these conditions. I've used half the battery in my flashlight and my backup is down to 20%. Once full darkness falls in old-growth forest, it's absolute. No moon penetrates the canopy, no starlight reaches the forest floor. Without artificial light, you literally can't see your hand in front of your face. That's when I hear Amanda's voice for the first time. "David? David, where are you? I'm lost." The voice comes from ahead of me, maybe 30 yards deeper into the forest. I swing my flashlight toward the sound, the beam cutting through Douglas fir trunks thick as cars. Nothing. "Amanda? Where are you? Keep talking, I'll find you." Silence. Then the laughter again, closer this time. Definitely not a child's laugh now that I hear it clearly. It's wrong. The pitch wavers unnaturally, sometimes deeper than any human voice should go, sometimes so high it's almost beyond hearing. My radio crackles with static. "Ranger 47, this is dispatch. What's your status on the missing person?" I key the microphone with trembling fingers. "This is Ranger 47, still searching grid section 7. No contact with subject. Request ETA on search team. Search team won't reach your position until approximately 0600 hours. Weather service is calling for temperature drop to 28 degrees tonight. You need to establish shelter and continue search at first light." Shelter. Standard protocol when searching alone in severe conditions. But every instinct screams against leaving Amanda out here for another 8 hours. In 28-degree weather, exposure will kill her long before dawn. Copy that, dispatch. We'll maintain search until 2300 hours, then establish shelter. I click off the radio before they can argue. 3 more hours of searchable darkness. 3 hours to find Amanda before I have to make the choice between following protocol and potentially freezing to death myself. "David!" Amanda's voice again, this time from behind me. I spin around, flashlight beam swinging wild arcs through the trees. A deer crashes through the underbrush, startled by my sudden movement. My heart hammers against my ribs. "Amanda, if you can hear me, stay put, I'm coming to you." But as I push through the salmonberry bushes toward where I heard her voice, my light catches something that makes my blood turn to ice water. A puddle of rainwater has collected in a depression between 2 large roots. And in that puddle, clear as if it were a high-definition television screen, I can see Amanda. She's not in the forest. She's in some kind of room, walls that look like they're made of mirrors reflecting her image infinitely in all directions. She's pounding on something I can't see, mouth open in a scream I can't hear. Behind her, Barely visible in the endless reflections is a figure in what looks like a colorful costume. I blink hard, shake my head, look again. The puddle shows only my own face, distorted by the irregular surface of the water. Jesus Christ, I whisper. I'm losing my fucking mind. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in David's situation? Comment below. But then I hear Amanda scream. Not her voice calling my name. A genuine scream of terror, high and desperate, echoing from somewhere deeper in the forest. Or maybe from the puddle at my feet, or maybe from inside my own head. I run. Branches whip across my face, tearing at my jacket. My flashlight beam bounces wildly as I crash through the underbrush, following the sound of Amanda's screams. They come from ahead of me, always just ahead of me, leading me deeper into the old growth section where the trees are so massive they create cathedral spaces between their trunks. I burst into a small clearing and freeze. There are dozens of puddles here, scattered across the forest floor like broken mirrors, and in every single one, I can see Amanda. Different scenes in each reflection. Amanda running through a maze of mirrors, Amanda trapped behind glass, Amanda reaching toward me with desperation written across her face. In one puddle, she seems to see me. Her eyes lock with mine through the water, and she mouths the word help. I drop to my knees beside that puddle, reaching toward the water. Amanda, I'm here. I'm going to get you out. The moment my fingers touch the surface, something grabs my wrist. Cold fingers, impossibly strong, pulling me toward the water. I scream and jerk backward, but the grip tightens. My flashlight falls, beam spinning crazily across the clearing, strobing through the trees like a broken disco ball. In the chaotic light, I catch glimpses of what has me, an arm extending up from the puddle, not Amanda's arm. This is pale as bone with fingers too long, nails black and pointed. Following the arm up, I see a shoulder, then a face emerging from water that should only be 3 inches deep. The face is painted like a clown's, but the paint is wrong. Colors that seem to shift and change in the flickering light. White grease paint that gleams like fresh bone. Red lips stretched too wide in a grin that shows far too many teeth. But the eyes are holes. Not black holes, not empty holes. Holes that seem to go on forever, reflecting infinite versions of my terrified face. The thing pulls harder, and my shoulder screams in pain as the joint strains. I'm being dragged toward a puddle barely bigger than a dinner plate, but somehow there's room for an entire creature to emerge from it. Where's Amanda? I gasp, fighting against the impossible grip. What did you do with her? The clown's grin widens impossibly, splitting its face nearly in half. When it speaks, its voice is Amanda's voice. I'm right here, David. Why won't you help me? I look around the clearing wildly, and now I can see Amanda in every single puddle, reaching up toward me, begging for help. Dozens of Amandas, all slightly different. Some crying, some screaming, some just staring with dead eyes. Which one is real? I shout. The clown's laughter fills the clearing, coming from every direction at once. Does it matter? You failed to protect her, just like you'll fail to protect your Emma. Emma. My daughter's name in that thing's mouth makes rage explode through my chest. I swing my free fist at the clown's face, connecting with what feels like cold mud. My hand passes through its head, but the grip on my wrist tightens. Touch me again and I'll show you what happened to all the others. It hisses in Amanda's voice. All the lost hikers, all the missing campers, they're all here with me now, David. In the place between reflections, more arms begin emerging from other puddles around the clearing. Pale arms reaching for me, trying to drag me down into water that couldn't possibly hold a child's action figure, let alone a grown man. I'm going to die here. The rational part of my mind accepts this with surprising calm. I'm going to be dragged into whatever impossible place Amanda was taken, and my wife will never know what happened to me. Emma will grow up wondering why Daddy never came home. But then I remember something, a detail that my rational mind dismissed but has been nagging at me for hours. When I first saw Amanda's reflection in the pool, it wasn't just different, it was reversed, like a true mirror image. But reflections in still water don't reverse horizontally. They flip vertically. Anyone who's ever looked at their reflection in a lake knows this, which means what I saw wasn't a reflection at all. "You're not real," I whisper. The grip on my wrist loosens slightly. "None of this is real. You're just..." "What? Some kind of hallucination? Mass hysteria?" The clown's painted face contorts with rage. "Real enough to take your precious Amanda. Real enough to take you." But I can hear the doubt in its voice now. Still Amanda's voice, but shaking with uncertainty. I force myself to look directly into those impossible hollow eyes. "If you're real, then where is Amanda's body? If you took her through the water, where did all that displaced water go? If you can emerge from a 3-inch puddle, why haven't you just grabbed me already instead of playing games?" The clown's grip weakens further. Around the clearing, the other arms beginning to sink back into their puddles. "Because you can't," I continue, confidence building. "You can only take people who believe in you. People who reach toward the reflections willingly. Amanda saw something impossible and tried to touch it. That's when you got her." "Clever ranger," the clown snarls. "But cleverness won't save her. She's already mine. And soon, when you're desperate enough, tired enough, scared enough, you'll reach for her reflection too. They always do." The grip on my wrist disappears entirely. I fall backward, landing hard on the damp forest floor. My flashlight has rolled against a tree root, still working, casting long shadows through the clearing. All the puddles now show only normal reflections. Trees, sky, my own frightened face. But Amanda is still missing. I check my GPS. 47.866 DN, 123.9355 W. I'm less than 100 yards from where she disappeared, but I feel like I've traveled to another world entirely. My radio crackles with static when I try to call dispatch, but no voices come through. The temperature has dropped to 32 degrees, freezing. I have two choices. Continue searching for Amanda in a forest that's apparently trying to drive me insane, or retreat to safety and wait for the search team at dawn. Everything in my training says, retreat. Hypothermia clouds judgment, and I'm already seeing things that aren't there. If I push myself past the breaking point, I'll become another victim instead of a rescuer. But every time I close my eyes, I see Amanda's terrified face in that mirror world, trapped with whatever that thing really is. Whether it's a supernatural entity or just a hallucination born from guilt and exhaustion, the fact remains. A young woman is missing on my watch. I pick up my flashlight and check the battery level. 40% remaining. Enough for maybe 2 more hours of searching. "Amanda!" I call into the darkness. "If you can hear me, I'm not giving up. I'm going to find you." No response except the whisper of wind through the canopy and the distant sound of water trickling over stone. I choose a direction at random and start walking. For the next hour, I maintain rigid focus on physical evidence. Footprints, broken branches, disturbed vegetation. No more looking at reflections, no more listening to phantom voices. Just good old-fashioned tracking, the way I was trained. And finally, I find something real. A scuff mark on a fallen log made by a hiking boot. Size 7, women's. Amanda's size. The mark is fresh, made within the last few hours. It leads toward a section of forest I haven't searched yet. A steep ravine thick with old-growth cedar. My heart rate spikes with genuine hope for the first time in hours. Physical evidence means Amanda was here, alive, moving under her own power after she disappeared from Reflection Pool. I follow the trail carefully, marking each sign with my GPS. Another scuff mark, a thread caught on a blackberry cane, a small stone kicked out of place. Someone came this way recently, someone wearing hiking boots and fleece clothing. The trail leads down into the ravine where a small creek runs between moss-covered boulders. And there, wedged between 2 rocks in the middle of the creek, is Amanda's camera. I wade into the icy water, my breath forming huge clouds in the freezing air. The camera is an expensive Canon DSLR, the same model Amanda was using this morning. The LCD screen is cracked but still functional. I scroll through the photos, looking for clues. Images of fungi and forest floor. Exactly what I'd expect from a mycology researcher. but the last few photos make my hands shake as I hold the camera. Photo 127. Reflection pool. Taken from Amanda's perspective looking down into the water. The reflection shows her face, but also something else. A shadowy figure standing behind her that isn't visible above the water's surface. Photo 128. The same pool, but now the shadowy figure is clearer. It's wearing some kind of colorful costume and its face is painted white. Photo 129. A close-up of the water's surface. The clown's face fills the entire reflection, grinning directly at the camera. Its hollow eyes seem to stare right through me. Photo 130. Black. Completely black. But the camera's timestamp shows photo 130 was taken 20 minutes after Amanda disappeared, which means either she took the photo herself or something else did. I look around the ravine, suddenly aware of how isolated I am. The sound of running water masks any other noises. The steep walls create deep shadows where my flashlight can't penetrate. And scattered along the creek are dozens of pools, each one a potential mirror. David. Amanda's voice coming from directly behind me. I turn slowly, dreading what I'll see. Amanda stands on the far bank of the creek looking exactly as she did this morning. Same clothes, same concerned expression. No signs of exposure or injury. Thank God, I breathe, starting toward her. Amanda, are you hurt? Everyone's looking for you. She doesn't move as I approach, doesn't respond to my questions, just stares at me with an expression I can't read. I'm halfway across the creek when I notice she's not breathing. No visible exhalation in the freezing air. No rise and fall of her chest. I stop, water swirling around my boots. Amanda? She tilts her head, and her face changes. The features shift subtly like I'm seeing her through rippling water. The concerned expression melts into something else, something hungry. You found my camera, she says, but her lips don't move properly with the words. Did you see the pictures, David? I take a step backward. You're not Amanda. Of course I am. Her grin widens, showing too many teeth. Who else would I be? The hollow eyes, the impossible grin. The thing that grabbed me from the puddle is wearing Amanda's face like a mask. Where is she? I demand. Where's the real Amanda? Not Amanda laughs, and the sound echoes strangely off the ravine walls. She's exactly where she's always been, David. You just have to know how to look. She gestures toward the creek, and I follow her gaze. In every pool, every still section of water, I can see Amanda trapped behind what looks like glass, pounding silently, mouth open in a scream I can't hear. The space between reflections, not Amanda continues. It's quite cozy, actually. All her predecessors are there to keep her company. Hikers, campers, researchers, even a few rangers over the years. You're lying. Am I? Not Amanda's face ripples like disturbed water. Check your missing persons reports, David. How many people disappear in these woods every year? How many are never found? Too many. The answer hits me like a punch to the gut. Olympic National Forest has one of the highest rates of unexplained disappearances in the country. Experienced hikers who vanish without a trace, leaving behind only abandoned campsites and unanswered questions. The mirrors call to them, not Amanda explains, her voice shifting between Amanda's familiar tone and something much older and colder. A reflection that shows them what they want to see most. A lost loved one, a better version of themselves, a glimpse of something wonderful. And when they reach toward it, she makes a grabbing motion with her hand. They join my collection. My radio suddenly crackles to life. Ranger 47, this is Search Team Alpha. We're about 2 hours out from your position. What's your status? I grab for the radio, but not Amanda moves faster than humanly possible. She's across the creek and beside me in an instant, cold fingers wrapping around my wrist. Don't spoil the surprise, she whispers in Amanda's voice. Tell them you're still searching. Buy me a little more time with my new friend. I key the microphone with my free hand. Search Team Alpha, this is Ranger 47, still conducting grid search in Section 7. No sign of subject yet. Copy that. Maintain your position and await our arrival. Not Amanda releases my wrist. Good boy. Now would you like to see Amanda? Really see her? Before I can answer, she steps backward into a large pool at the center of the creek. Instead of splashing into shallow water, she sinks, as if the pool were infinitely deep. Her head disappears beneath the surface, but her voice continues to speak from the water. Look, David. Look and see where she's been waiting for you. Against every instinct, every rational thought in my head, I look down into the pool. Amanda is there, trapped in a space that looks like a hall of mirrors extending in all directions. But it's not just Amanda. There are dozens of other people, all pressed against what looks like the underside of the water's surface, all reaching upward desperately. I recognize some of the faces from missing persons reports. Sarah Martinez disappeared while hiking in 2016. Thomas Chen vanished during a solo camping trip last year. Jenny Rodriguez, missing since 2014, all of them staring up at me with desperate, pleading eyes. And Amanda in the center of the group, mouthing the word help over and over. She's been asking for you specifically. Not Amanda's voice drifts up from the water. David this, David that. She has such faith in you, such complete trust that you'll save her. I find myself reaching toward the water before I consciously make the decision. My fingertips are inches from the surface when I catch myself. No, I whisper. I'm not falling for this. Falling for what? Not Amanda surfaces beside the trapped figures, water streaming from her painted face. I'm offering you exactly what you want, to save Amanda. All you have to do is reach down and pull her out. And then I'll be trapped too. Oh, David. She shakes her head sadly. You already are trapped. Do you really think you can walk away from this? Go home to your wife and daughter, pretend you never saw Amanda's terrified face in that mirror? Pretend you didn't fail to save her when you had the chance? The words hit home because she's right. Even if I survive this night, even if search and rescue find some rational explanation for Amanda's disappearance, I'll never forget what I've seen. The guilt will eat me alive. At least here you'll be together. Not Amanda continues. You and Amanda and all the others. No more loneliness, no more guilt, no more failure. Just the eternal comfort of my collection. She's rising out of the water now, but she's not Amanda anymore. The mask has slipped completely, revealing the painted clown face underneath. White grease paint streaked with water, red lips stretched impossibly wide, hollow eyes that seem to contain infinite darkness. Last chance, Ranger, it says in a voice like grinding glass. Reach for her now or watch her fade away forever. In the pool, Amanda is growing dimmer, less substantial. The other trapped figures are barely visible now, like images on an old television with the brightness turned all the way down. I have maybe 30 seconds to make a choice that will determine not just my fate, but Amanda's, and possibly the fate of everyone who comes after us. My hand hovers over the water's surface. Amanda looks up at me with complete trust, complete faith that I'll save her. And that's when I understand what I have to do. Instead of reaching down into the water, I pull out my camera phone and take a picture of the pool. The clown shrieks in rage, a sound like breaking glass that echoes off the ravine walls. The water in the pool begins to boil and churn. "What are you doing?" it screams. "Creating evidence," I reply, taking another photo. Real, physical, undeniable evidence. I document everything. The impossible depth of the shallow pool, the figures trapped beneath the surface, the clown's painted face contorting with fury. Each photo I take seems to make the entity more solid, more real, and more vulnerable. "You can't," the clown snarls. "No one will believe you." Maybe not, I admit, still taking pictures. But Amanda's parents will have answers. The families of all these missing people will have answers. And the next ranger who comes out here will know what to look for. The boiling water is rising now, spilling over the banks of the creek. But instead of flowing downstream, it's forming into a perfect sphere around the clown, trapping it like a liquid cage. "You think this ends anything?" It hisses as the water sphere begins to contract. "I am eternal. I am the reflection in every mirror, the face in every pool. You cannot destroy me." "I'm not trying to destroy you," I say, lowering my camera. I'm just refusing to feed you." The water sphere shrinks to the size of a baseball, then a marble, then disappears entirely with a sound like a soap bubble popping. The creek returns to normal. The pool shows only my own reflection, distorted by the gentle current. But Amanda and the others are gone. I stand in the freezing water for a long moment, looking at the photos on my phone. They show only a normal creek, normal pools, normal reflections. Whatever power that thing had over reality, it didn't extend to digital cameras. My radio crackles. "Ranger 47, this is Search Team Alpha. We have your position on GPS. ETA 15 minutes. "Copy that," I respond. "I'm at the creek in grid section 8. I have the subject's camera and evidence of recent passage, but no sign of the subject herself." It's not a lie. I do have evidence of Amanda's passage, the photos on her camera, the trail she left climbing down into the ravine. What I don't have is any rational explanation for where she went after that. But as I wade back to shore, something catches my eye. Carved into a cedar tree about 6 feet up the trunk, barely visible beneath decades of moss growth, are initials: AC, plus BR, 1947, Amanda Chen, AC. But the carving is over 70 years old. I take one more photo, this one of the carved initials, and start the climb out of the ravine to meet the search team. Some questions don't have answers that make sense in our rational world. Some mysteries are meant to stay mysterious. But tomorrow, I'm going to start researching missing persons cases in Olympic National Forest going back to 1947. I'm going to find patterns, connections, evidence that might help other rangers recognize the warning signs. And I'm going to make damn sure that no other Amanda gets trapped between reflections on my watch. The search team finds me 20 minutes later, hypothermic and exhausted but alive. They spend the next 3 days combing every inch of the forest around Reflection Pool. They find Amanda's trail, her abandoned day pack, her camera in the creek. They don't find Amanda. The official report lists her as a missing person, cause unknown. The case remains open, but I know the truth. And someday when I'm ready, when I have enough evidence to be believed, I'll tell it. Until then, I avoid looking at reflections in still water, and I never go hiking alone. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like, if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror. And comment your theory about what really happened to Amanda. I read every single one. My name is Joseph, and I saw Lauren Fitzgerald disappear 3 meters in front of me on the Hoh River Trail before she walked into nothing. That's not right. Let me start over. My name is Joseph, and I'm the ranger who lost a 22-year-old geology student in broad daylight while looking directly at her. And now everyone thinks I've lost my mind. It was October 23, 2019, 2:47 p.m. I know the exact time because my Garmin InReach beeped a weather update just as Lauren stopped walking. The autumn air in Olympic National Park carried that thick, earthy smell of decomposing maple leaves mixed with the perpetual dampness of the Hoh rainforest. I was escorting her to her research site, some mineral deposit near the South Fork that her professor at UW was excited about. Standard safety protocol for solo researchers. The other rangers called it babysitting duty, and always stuck me with it because I was the youngest at 28 and had a PhD in environmental science that apparently made me perfect for dealing with the college kids. Lauren was explaining her thesis about sedimentary patterns when she suddenly stopped mid-sentence. Her North Face backpack, covered in geology pins and a rock-on patch, shifted as she turned her head toward the tree line. "Someone needs help," she said. I followed her gaze. About 15 feet off the trail, barely visible through the massive Sitka spruces and curtains of moss, a middle-aged man in a rain jacket was walking. Not hiking, not exploring, just walking in a slow, measured circle, each step deliberate, mechanical. My first thought was stroke or diabetic episode. "Sir?" I called out, my hand instinctively moving to the first aid kit on my belt. "You okay over there?" He didn't respond, just kept walking his circle, maybe 6 feet in diameter. The forest floor crunched under his boots. old Merrill's I noticed, worn at the heels. His breathing was visible in small puffs in the cool air, steady and rhythmic like his steps. Lauren was already moving toward him. "He might be in shock," she said, her voice carrying that helpful concern that probably made her a great teaching assistant. "My dad had a panic attack once that looked kind of... Lauren, wait." Something felt wrong. The birds had gone quiet. No varied thrushes, no winter wrens. Even the ever-present banana slugs seemed to have vanished from the fallen logs. My radio crackled with static, though dispatch hadn't called. The metallic taste of adrenaline hit my tongue, but she was already approaching the man, her keen boots leaving deep impressions in the damp earth. "Sir, I'm Lauren. This is Ranger Joseph. We're here to help." The man turned his head toward her, and I saw his face clearly for the first time. His expression was blank, eyes unfocused, but his mouth moved. I couldn't hear the words, but Lauren apparently did. She tilted her head, stepped closer. "What did you say?" she asked. That's when she started walking. Not away, not toward the man, but in a circle. A perfect circle, maybe 3 feet from his path. Her orange rain jacket caught a shaft of sunlight breaking through the canopy as she moved. 1 step, 2, 3. The same measured pace as the man. "Lauren?" My voice cracked like I was going through puberty again. "Lauren, what are you doing?" She didn't answer. Her face had taken on that same blank expression. Her lips moved silently, and her breath came out in those same steady puffs. Her research notebook fell from her pocket, pages fluttering open to reveal meticulous drawings of rock strata. I rushed forward, my boots slipping on the wet undergrowth, reached for her arm. "Lauren, stop. This isn't..." My hand passed through empty air. She was still there, still walking, but my hand went through her arm like she was made of mist. No, that's not right either. It was like the space she occupied didn't exist in the same way anymore. I could see her, but she wasn't there. There. My scientific brain started screaming about dimensional physics and spatial anomalies, but my ranger training took over. I grabbed my radio. "Dispatch, this is Joseph at mile marker 8.3 on the Hoh River Trail. I need immediate backup. Possible medical emergency with a civilian." Static. Then Donna's voice, our dispatcher. "Copy that, Joseph. Nature of the medical emergency?" How could I explain? 2 individuals exhibiting unusual behavior, possibly neurological. Send the paramedics. Roger. ETA 40 minutes. 40 minutes. I looked back at Lauren. She'd moved closer to the man now, her circle tightening. No, not just tightening, spiraling. She was walking in a spiral, each revolution bringing her closer to where the man walked. And he was spiraling too, I realized, his circle shrinking incrementally with each pass. My phone still had 2 bars. I started recording video, thinking maybe I was having some kind of episode. Maybe the camera would show me what was really happening. Through the screen, it looked even worse. The space around them seemed to bend, the trees in the background warping like looking through old glass. "Lauren!" I shouted. "Your mom called this morning. She wanted to know if you'd be home for Thanksgiving. You told her you'd make your grandmother's stuffing recipe." Nothing. She kept walking, now close enough to the man that their paths nearly touched. That's when I noticed others. In the periphery, barely visible through the trees, more shapes moved in the same rhythmic pattern. How had I not seen them before? A woman in running gear, a teenager with a hiking pack, an older man in a Park Service uniform that looked decades out of date, all walking their circles, their spirals at different stages of whatever this was. The temperature dropped at least 10 degrees. My breath came out in thick clouds, and frost began forming on the ferns despite it being 55 degrees a minute ago. My Suunto watch showed 3:15 p.m., but the sun's position suggested it was closer to sunset. The GPS coordinates on my Garmin flickered between numbers that didn't match any location in the park. Lauren's spiral tightened again. She was maybe 18 inches from the man now. both of them moving in perfect synchronization like some horrible dance. The space in the center of their spiral looked wrong, darker than it should be, like a hole in the air that my eyes couldn't quite focus on. I tried everything. Threw rocks at them. The stones passed through like they weren't there. Tried to tackle Lauren. I went right through and landed face first in the mud, tasting earth and blood from where I bit my tongue. Even tried using my bear spray, thinking maybe the capsaicin would shock them out of it. The orange cloud passed through them without effect. My radio crackled. "Joseph, update on your situation?" I grabbed it with shaking hands. "Dispatch, I need everyone. Send everyone and tell them." "What? Tell them what? That people were disappearing into impossible spirals? That the laws of physics had taken a coffee break?" "Joseph, you're breaking up." I looked at my radio. The LCD display showed symbols I'd never seen before, characters that hurt to look at. When I blinked, it showed normal numbers again, but they kept changing. 2:15, 5:47, 11:33. Lauren was so close to the center now, maybe 6 inches from the man, both of them walking in a spiral so tight they were practically spinning in place. The darkness in the center had grown, or maybe I could just see it better now. It wasn't darkness exactly. It was absence, a place where space forgot to exist. "Lauren, please," I heard myself begging. "Your thesis. You have to present next week. Professor Martinez said it was groundbreaking. You can't." She took one more step, and she was gone. Not disappeared, not faded, gone. Like she'd never existed. The man was gone too, stepped into that same impossible center, the space where they'd been snapped back to normal like a rubber band released, and the other figures in the forest. I couldn't see them anymore. Maybe they'd never been there. Maybe they were still there, just sideways to reality. The temperature returned to normal. Birds started singing. My equipment showed the correct time, 3:17 p.m. 2 minutes. The whole thing had taken 2 minutes. When backup arrived 38 minutes later, they found me sitting in the mud, staring at a patch of unremarkable forest floor. No signs of struggle. No footprints but mine. Lauren's notebook was there, though, half buried in leaves, her handwriting describing mineral compositions that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Joseph's situation? Comment below. They didn't believe me, of course. The search and rescue team combed every inch of the trail. Dogs couldn't find a scent. The helicopter with thermal imaging found nothing. Tom Harrison, the ranger station chief, made me pee in a cup and take a breathalyzer. Both came back clean, which somehow made things worse. Trauma response, the park psychologist told me 3 days later. Sometimes when we witness something traumatic, our mind creates elaborate scenarios to process the guilt. "I videoed it," I said for the 100th time. She nodded patiently. "Your phone shows a 2-minute video of forest floor, Joseph. Just trees and ferns." But I knew what I saw. Lauren's mom called me every day for 2 weeks, her voice broken with hope and grief. "You were the last person to see her. Please, anything you remember." What could I tell her? That her daughter walked into nothing? That she spiraled out of existence while I watched, useless despite all my training, all my education? Sarah, my pregnant wife, tried to be supportive, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Emma, our 5-year-old, asked why Daddy stared at nothing sometimes, why I'd stopped taking her on my ranger adventures in the backyard. How could I explain that I was watching for circles, for patterns, for people walking wrong? I went back to work after 2 weeks of mandatory leave. They gave me desk duty, paperwork, visitor center shifts, anything to keep me away from the trails. The other rangers whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. Burnout. Psychological break. Maybe the PhD made him overthink it. But I knew the truth, and late at night, when Sarah was asleep and Emma was dreaming whatever beautiful dreams 5-year-olds have, I'd review the video on my phone. 2 minutes of forest floor. Except sometimes, In the corner of the frame, just for a single frame that I had to pause at exactly the right moment, I could see the edge of a circle, the hem of an orange jacket, a boot print that shouldn't exist. I started researching on my own time, found reports buried in the park archives. 1997, day hiker vanished near Solduke Falls. Companion claimed he walked into a tree. 1983, scout troop leader disappeared at Lake Crescent. Boys reported he was helping someone who wasn't there. 1971, park naturalist missing after reporting visitors walking in patterns near the Quinault Valley. The pattern went back further. Native stories the Quileute and Ho tribes told about places where the forest forgot itself, where people could step sideways out of the world. They had names for it I couldn't pronounce, words that meant something like the spiral that eats or the walking that leads nowhere. November came. Lauren's case went cold. Her parents held a memorial service I couldn't bring myself to attend. The park issued statements about the dangers of solo hiking, about how even experienced geology students could get lost. They increased safety protocols, buddy systems, GPS trackers. None of it would matter if what took Lauren came back. Then, 3 weeks ago, I was filing October's incident reports when Donna patched through a strange call. "Joseph, I've got a situation that, well, they're asking for you specifically." "Who is?" "Visitor at the Ho entrance. Says she has information about the Fitzgerald case." My hands went cold. I wasn't supposed to have anything to do with that case anymore. "Transfer them to Tom or Joseph." Donna's voice dropped. "She says she knows about the circles." I drove out there in my personal truck, not even signing out properly. The visitor was a woman in her 60s, Native American, wearing a University of Washington faculty jacket. She introduced herself as Professor Ruth Kalama, Department of Indigenous Studies. "My grandmother was from the Ho tribe," she said without preamble. She told me stories. And last week, one of my graduate students came to me with a video they'd found on their phone, a video they didn't remember taking. She showed me her phone. The timestamp was November 15th, 2019, 5 days ago. The location was near Ruby Beach, about 30 miles from where Lauren disappeared. The video showed a young man filming a sunset. Then the camera turned, accidentally it seemed, and caught something in the trees. People walking in circles, dozens of them. "The student doesn't remember this," Professor Kalama said. "He remembers photographing the sunset, then driving home. But his phone says he was there for 3 hours. I watched the video again. The figures were clearer than what I'd seen, maybe because of the sunset lighting. Men, women, children even, all walking their perfect circles at different speeds, different radii. And in the center of each circle, that same wrongness, that absence I'd seen swallow Lauren. "Your grandmother's stories," I said. "Did they say how to stop it?" Professor Kalama was quiet for a moment. "They said you don't stop it. You can only avoid feeding it." "Feeding it?" "The walking sickness, they called it. It's hungry for patterns, for cycles, for repetition. The more people who see it, who know about it, the stronger it becomes, the more it can manifest." She looked at me with dark, serious eyes. "How many people have you told about what you saw?" My mouth went dry. The reports, the search teams, the psychologist, Tom, Donna, the entire ranger station, Sarah, even Emma in simplified terms trying to explain why Daddy was sad. "Too many," I whispered. She nodded grimly. "It's spreading, fed by acknowledgement, by recognition. Every person who knows about it becomes a potential vector, and once you've seen it, really seen it." She trailed off. "What?" "You can see them everywhere, the ones who are starting to walk." I thought about the maintenance worker I'd seen yesterday, taking the same path around the visitor center 7 times before lunch, the jogger who ran past my house every morning at 6:15, 6:45, 7:15, 7:45, always the same route, the same pace. Sarah's cousin who'd started this weird habit of stirring her coffee counterclockwise exactly 12 times. Patterns, circles, spirals. Is there a cure? A way to break someone out once they start? Professor Kalama shook her head. The old stories say once the pattern takes hold, the person is already gone. What we see walking is just an echo, a recording playing out until it winds down to the center. Lauren talked to it, to the first walker. That's when she started. Communication is invitation. Recognition is acceptance. Understanding is submission. She said it like a mantra, something memorized. My grandmother said those who survived the walking sickness were those who looked away, who refused to see, who forgot. But I couldn't forget. How could I forget Lauren's face going blank, her measured steps, the way reality bent around her like space itself was diseased? That night I went home and watched Sarah making dinner. She stirred the pasta sauce. Clockwise, 3 times. Counterclockwise, 3 times. Clockwise, 3 times. When had she started doing that? "Honey," I said carefully, "the sauce is probably mixed." She looked at me with confusion. "What? Oh, I guess I was daydreaming." She stopped stirring, but her free hand started tracing small circles on the counter. Emma was in the living room playing with her toys. She'd arranged them in a circle. She was walking her favorite doll around the perimeter, humming tunelessly. "Emma, sweetie, what game are you playing?" "The walking game," she said without looking up. "The lady in the forest taught me. She says if I practice enough, I can visit her." My blood turned to ice. "What lady, baby?" "The one who watches from the trees when you're at work. She's really nice. She says she knows someone named Lauren who wants to say hi to you." I picked Emma up, breaking her pattern. She squirmed in protest, but I held her tight. "We don't play that game anymore, okay? Promise, Daddy." But she said, "Promise me." She must have seen something in my face because she nodded solemnly. "Okay, Daddy. No more walking game." But that night I couldn't sleep. I stood at Emma's doorway watching her chest rise and fall, watching for patterns in her breathing. When I finally dozed off standing there, I dreamed of Lauren walking her endless spiral, getting closer and closer to a center that didn't exist. I woke to find myself in the backyard at 3 a.m., halfway through my 7th circuit around the garden bed. The next morning, I called Professor Kalama. "It's affecting my family. How do I stop it?" "You can't," she said, "but you might be able to redirect it." "What do you mean?" "The walking sickness needs an anchor, a focal point. Right now, that's you. You're the one who saw, who understood, who remembered. It's using you to spread." She paused. "Unless you give it a stronger anchor." "Like what?" "Like returning to where it started. Confronting it directly. Either you break its hold on you or I end up like Lauren. Most likely, yes." I thought about Sarah, unconsciously stirring in patterns, Emma playing her walking game. How many others in town had started developing little circular habits, tiny spirals in their daily routines? How long before someone else took that final step into the center? So here I am, November 20th, 2019, sitting in my truck at the Hoh River Trail parking lot at 5:43 a.m. The sun isn't up yet. My phone has 3 bars, but the signal keeps fluctuating. I've left Sarah a note explaining everything, though I doubt she'll believe it. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe forgetting is the only real protection. I've got my full ranger kit. First aid, emergency beacon, flares, rope, even my grandfather's crucifix, though I'm not religious. Professor Kalama gave me something too. A small bundle of cedar and sage her grandmother once used for walking between worlds. I don't know if any of it will help. The trail looks different in the pre-dawn darkness. My headlamp cuts through the mist, making the moisture in the air look like static. Every shadow could be a person mid-step. Every sound could be footfalls in an endless circle. Mile marker 8.3 comes up faster than I remember. My GPS confirms the location, though the numbers keep shifting. 47.8607, 47.8608, 47.8606, like the coordinates themselves are walking in circles. I step off the trail where Lauren disappeared. The forest is silent except for my breathing, which sounds too loud, too rhythmic. 1 breath, 2, 3. Am I counting? Why am I counting? There, between the trees. Movement. A figure in an orange rain jacket. My headlamp catches her face, and my heart stops. It's Lauren, but also not Lauren. She looks exactly the same as 4 weeks ago, down to the mud splatter on her boots, but her expression is wrong. Vacant. Waiting. Lauren? My voice cracks. She tilts her head. Her mouth moves, but I can't hear words. Just a sound like wind through empty spaces. She takes a step. Not toward me, perpendicular, not away. The beginning of a circle. I want to run. Every instinct screams to flee. But I think about Emma, about the walking game, about how many others might be infected by whatever I brought back from these woods. I take out my phone, start recording, though I know it probably won't capture anything useful. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, I tell Lauren's echo. She continues walking. 1 step, 2, 3. The circle is about 6 feet in diameter, just like before, but this time I notice something else. Other figures barely visible in the pre-dawn darkness. Dozens of them, all walking their own circles at different stages. Some are almost transparent, others solid enough to cast shadows in my headlight. I recognize the Park Service uniform on one. Randy Morrison, disappeared in 1987 according to the records I'd found. A woman in 1950s hiking gear. A child in clothes that might be from the 1920s. All walking. All trapped in their endless patterns. The temperature drops. My breath fogs. The GPS on my phone shows impossible coordinates now. Numbers that don't correspond to anywhere on Earth. The compass on my watch spins lazily, unable to find north. Lauren's circle tightens. She's spiraling inward, faster than before. The center of her spiral looks like a hole in the morning, a place where light forgets to exist. She's 3 feet from the center, 2 feet, 1. That's when I understand. She's not trapped. She's showing me something. I look closer at the center of her spiral, fighting every instinct that tells me to look away. It's not empty. There's something there, vast and ancient and patient. It doesn't exist in 3 dimensions, maybe not even 4. It's a pattern that extends through space and time, a cosmic spiral that our brains can only perceive as people walking in circles. It's been here longer than the forest, longer than the mountains. It feeds on recognition, yes, but also on repetition, on the patterns that underlie reality itself. Planetary orbits, electron shells, DNA helixes, galaxies spinning through the void. All circles, all spirals, all feeding this thing that exists in the spaces between spaces. Lauren reaches the center and disappears, but I can still feel her presence, like she's just outside my peripheral vision. All of them are. Every person who ever walked into the spiral, they're all still here, just rotated slightly out of our reality. Waiting, walking. My left foot takes a step. Not forward, not back. Perpendicular. No. I came here to break its hold, not succumb to it. I dig my grandfather's crucifix out of my pocket, clutch it until the edges bite into my palm. The pain helps, grounds me in my body. I'm Joseph Martinez. I'm 28 years old. I have a wife named Sarah who's 7 months pregnant. I have a daughter named Emma who loves dinosaurs and hates broccoli. Another step. My body moves without my permission. The world tilts, and suddenly walking in a circle seems like the most natural thing in the world. Like I've always been walking in circles. Like everyone has. I think about my PhD thesis on forest ecosystems, about the mycorrhizal networks that connect trees in vast underground webs, about how patterns repeat at every scale of nature. What if this thing isn't alien at all? What if it's the pattern beneath all patterns, the spiral at the heart of reality, and we just evolved the ability to see it? 3 steps. 4. I'm walking the circle now, can feel the rightness of it in my bones. The forest around me starts to fade, replaced by something else. I see other forests, other worlds, other versions of reality, where different creatures walk different circles. all feeding the same cosmic pattern. But I also see Sarah's face, Emma's laugh, the life I haven't lived yet, the child that hasn't been born, the drawings Emma hasn't made, the stories she hasn't told, the woman she hasn't become. Love. That's not a pattern. It's chaos, unpredictable, impossible to map or repeat. Every moment of genuine human connection is unique, unrepeatable, resistant to the spiral's pull. I force myself to stop walking. My muscles scream in protest. The thing in the center pulls at me, not physically but at the level of atoms, trying to align my electrons to its spiral. I take out my phone with shaking hands and dial Sarah's number. Joseph? Her sleepy voice cuts through the madness. It's not even 6. Is everything okay? Tell me something random, I gasp. Something that makes no sense. What? Joseph, you're scaring me. Please, just anything. Stream of consciousness. Okay. I had a dream about purple elephants eating birthday cake on Mars, and you were there wearing a tutu. And Emma was conducting an orchestra of hamsters, and the baby kicked when I woke up, and I think we're out of milk. And why do socks disappear in the dryer and... Her words shatter the pattern. The randomness, the beautiful chaos of a human mind, jumping from thought to thought without logic or reason. It's like acid on the spiral's hold. I take a stumbling step backward, breaking the circle. The forest snaps back into focus. Dawnlight filters through the canopy. The figures are gone, or at least sideways enough that I can't see them. But I can feel them watching, waiting. The spiral hasn't released me. It's just loosened its grip. I run, full sprint back to the trail, back to my truck, phone still pressed to my ear as Sarah asks increasingly worried questions. I tell her I love her. I tell her to wake Emma and hug her. I tell her I'm coming home and we're leaving. Today. Now. Joseph, you're really scaring me. What happened? I'll explain later, just don't repeat anything today, okay? No patterns, no routines. Be random, be chaotic, be human. I make it to my truck, fumble with the keys. In the rearview mirror, I swear I see a figure in an orange jacket standing at the trailhead. But when I look directly, there's nothing there. I drive home breaking every speed limit, taking random turns, anything to avoid falling into a pattern. Sarah's waiting on the porch with Emma, both in their pajamas, confused and frightened. I hug them so tight Emma complains I'm squishing her. We're leaving, I tell Sarah. I'll call Tom, resign effective immediately. We'll stay with your parents in Florida. Somewhere flat, somewhere without forests. Joseph, what? Please, trust me. Just this once, don't ask questions. Just trust me. Maybe it's something in my voice, or maybe she can see the terror in my eyes, but she nods. We pack like our lives depend on it, because they do. No folding clothes the same way twice. No systematic organization. Everything chaotic, random, human. As we drive out of Forks, I check the rearview mirror obsessively, looking for patterns in the traffic, looking for people walking when they should be driving, looking for circles within circles within circles. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Just coordinates. I know without checking that they lead back to mile marker 8.3. I throw the phone out the window. It's been 3 weeks now. We're in Florida, in Sarah's childhood home. It's flat here. Straight roads that go for miles. No forests, no trails, no circles. But I still see them sometimes, in the way people orbit tables at restaurants, in the path joggers take around the local track, in the way Emma unconsciously walks around her toys. The walking sickness isn't confined to that forest. It was never confined. It's everywhere, in every pattern, every repetition, every cycle. The forest was just where the barrier was thinnest, where the spiral could push through. Professor Kalama called yesterday. The number of disappearances in Olympic National Park has tripled since November. They're closing the Hoh River Trail indefinitely. She asked if I'd contained it or made it worse. I couldn't answer. How do you contain something that exists in the very fabric of reality? Sarah's started having contractions. We'll head to the hospital soon. When the baby comes, when she's born into this world of patterns and cycles, I'll be watching, making sure her first breaths are irregular, her first cries chaotic, her first movements random and human and free. Because that's all we have against the spiral. The beautiful randomness of being human. The chaos of love and fear and hope that refuses to follow any pattern. But sometimes, late at night when Sarah's sleeping and Emma's dreaming, I stand in the backyard and feel the pull. The urge to take just one step perpendicular to reality. To walk the circle that completes itself. To spiral down to that impossible center where Lauren waits with all the others. Walking forever in a pattern that encompasses everything and nothing. I don't sleep much anymore. I can't. Because in my dreams, I'm always walking. We're all walking. Circles within circles within circles, spiraling toward a center that exists outside of space and time, where something vast and patient waits to welcome us home. My name is Joseph Martinez. I was a forest ranger. I saw someone disappear into an impossible spiral, and I brought something back with me that I can never fully escape. If you see someone walking in circles, look away. Run. Forget. Don't feed the pattern. Don't join the spiral. Don't... Wait. Emma's out of bed. I can see her through the window. She's in the backyard walking. Oh God, she's walking in a circle and there's someone with her. Someone in an orange jacket. I have to go. I have to stop her. I have to... Entry ends. Epilogue. Florida Herald, December 3rd, 2019. Local family missing under mysterious circumstances. Gainesville. Police are searching for a family of 3 who disappeared from their home early Tuesday morning under unusual circumstances. Joseph Martinez, 28, his wife Sarah Martinez, 26, and their daughter Emma Martinez, 5, were last seen by neighbors around 2 a.m. I heard their door open, said neighbor Patricia Hoffman. When I looked out, they were just walking. All 3 of them, walking in the same direction, same pace like sleepwalkers. I called out, but they didn't respond. Security footage from a nearby traffic camera shows the family walking in what appears to be a circular pattern in an intersection before the feed cuts to static. Their vehicle remains in the driveway, and their belongings appear undisturbed. Joseph Martinez, a former park ranger from Washington State, had recently relocated his family to Florida. Colleagues describe him as troubled, following an incident in October where a hiker went missing under his supervision. Sarah Martinez was 7 months pregnant at the time of the disappearance. Anyone with information is asked to contact local authorities. Police advise against approaching the family if seen, as they may be experiencing a medical emergency. In an unusual detail, several witnesses report seeing other individuals walking in similar patterns throughout Gainesville on the night of the disappearance. Police have not confirmed if these incidents are related. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like, if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror, and comment your theory about what really happened to Lauren. I read every single one. My name is Christopher, and I saw Emily for the last time 3 meters ahead of me on the trail before she simply disappeared. I've been a ranger at Great Smoky Mountains National Park for 8 years, and my gut has never steered me wrong. That morning, October 15th, 2018, my intuition was screaming at me from the moment I met Emily Rodriguez at the Cataract Falls trailhead. She was 23, fresh out of graduate school, doing research on endemic salamander populations for her thesis. Bright smile, expensive hiking boots that had never seen mud, and an eagerness that reminded me of my daughter Sophie when she discovers a new book. But something was off. The air tasted metallic, like before a lightning strike, and the usual morning bird chorus had gone silent. My wedding ring felt cold against my finger, and the photo of Sophie's gap-toothed grin in my wallet seemed to burn against my chest. I'd kissed my wife Karen goodbye at 5:30 a.m., promising I'd be home for Sophie's soccer practice at 6 p.m. Just another routine day guiding a researcher. The salamanders are most active in the morning moisture, Emily had explained, adjusting her university-issued GPS unit. I need to document them before the sun burns off the dew. I nodded, but my skin was crawling. 8 years of ranger training, plus whatever sixth sense my grandmother called the knowing, was telling me to turn around. The October morning was perfect. 58 degrees, light fog, perfect visibility. But something fundamental felt wrong with the world. We started up the Cataract Falls Trail at 7:15 a.m. Emily chattered nervously about her research, but I was scanning the tree line, my hand unconsciously checking my radio, GPS, and emergency whistle. The weight of my pack felt heavier than usual, even though it contained the standard gear. First aid kit, emergency bivvy, rope, water purification tablets, energy bars, and my backup battery pack. "Mr. Patterson, you seem tense," Emily said as we passed the quarter-mile marker. "Call me Christopher, and yeah, just stay close today, okay?" The fog was thicker than the weather report had predicted, swirling in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. My boots, Morel Moab hiking boots broken in over 3 years of mountain patrols, found their rhythm on the familiar trail, but my heart rate was elevated. My Garmin GPS showed our location clearly, but I kept glancing at it compulsively. At the half-mile point, Emily stopped to examine a decaying log. "Perfect salamander habitat," she murmured, crouching with her field notebook. That's when I first saw him. About 50 yards ahead, barely visible through the fog, a man was walking in slow, measured circles. He wore dark clothing and moved with a strange, hypnotic rhythm. My intuition exploded into full alarm. Every nerve ending in my body screamed danger. "Emily, we need to go. Now." "But I haven't finished documenting." "Now." But she was already standing, curiosity overriding my urgency. "Is that person okay? Should we help?" The man continued his circular walk, never pausing, never looking up. Something about the perfect consistency of his movement made my stomach clench. This wasn't normal human behavior. "Stay behind me," I commanded, unclipping my radio. "Station 3, this is Ranger Patterson. I've got a possible 1054 on Cataract Falls Trail, requesting backup." Static answered me. Complete radio silence, which was impossible at this elevation. Emily was already walking ahead, her researcher's instincts overriding common sense. "Sir, are you all right?" Emily stopped. But she was moving faster now, and that's when I noticed something that made my blood freeze. The man's footsteps weren't leaving marks on the muddy trail. I lunged forward, reaching for Emily's backpack, but she was just out of reach. 3 meters ahead of me, she called out again. "Sir, do you need help?" The walking man stopped. He turned toward Emily, and I saw his face, or what should have been his face. It was perfectly ordinary and completely wrong. Like looking at a photograph of a person instead of an actual human being. His eyes held no depth, no life, no recognition. "Emily, get back here right fucking now," I shouted, abandoning protocol. But she took another step toward him, and that's when reality broke. Emily didn't scream. She didn't fall. She didn't run. 1 second she was there, notebook in hand, concerned expression on her face. The next second she was simply not. Like someone had deleted her from existence. I stood frozen, staring at the empty space where a living, breathing human being had been 30 seconds before. My rational mind tried to process what I'd witnessed, but the evidence defied every law of physics I understood. The walking man resumed his circular pattern as if nothing had happened. I keyed my radio with shaking hands. "Station 3, this is Patterson. I have a 1054 missing person, Emily Rodriguez, last seen coordinates." I rattled off our GPS position, but only static answered. My cell phone showed no signal, which was impossible at this location. I always had at least 2 bars on the Cataract Falls Trail. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Christopher's situation? Comment below. I approached the walking man carefully, every instinct screaming at me to run. Up close, his appearance became more unsettling. His clothes looked real, his movements seemed natural, but there was something fundamentally empty about him. like watching a well-programmed automaton. "Sir?" I called out. "Sir, I need to ask you about the young woman who was just here." He didn't acknowledge me, just kept walking his perfect circle, maybe 8 feet in diameter. I timed his circuit, exactly 43 seconds per revolution. His footsteps made no sound on the gravel and fallen leaves. I tried to stay outside his circular path, but something was pulling at me. Not physically, this was deeper. A compulsion I'd never experienced before. My feet wanted to follow his rhythm. My legs wanted to match his pace. "Don't be ridiculous," I told myself. "You're a trained professional. You've handled bears, lightning strikes, and heart attacks. You can handle one confused hiker." But I took a step into his circular path and immediately felt the pull intensify. It wasn't a choice anymore. My body was following his route without conscious decision. "What the hell?" I muttered, trying to stop walking, but my legs continued their measured pace. One foot in front of the other, maintaining the exact spacing, following the precise circuit. That's when the real horror began. I could see what was happening, could feel my body moving without my permission, but couldn't stop it. My rational mind was fully alert and completely powerless. I was walking in a perfect circle just like him, and with each circuit the circle was getting smaller. First circuit, 8 feet in diameter. Second circuit, 7 feet 6 inches. Third circuit, 7 feet. "No, no, no," I whispered, but my legs kept moving. I tried to break free, tried to step out of the pattern, but it was like being trapped in invisible rails. My feet followed the exact path, my pace matched his precisely. The walking man, if he was a man, never looked at me, never acknowledged my presence. But I could feel his satisfaction. This wasn't random, this was hunting. Fourth circuit, 6 feet 3 inches. Fifth circuit, 5 feet 9 inches. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I tried my radio again. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Ranger Patterson. I need immediate assistance on Cataract Falls Trail." Nothing but static. I thought about Karen, probably getting Sophie ready for school right now. Packing her lunch, making sure she had her math homework. I thought about my promise to be home for soccer practice. I thought about how I'd explain to Emily's parents that their daughter had simply vanished. Sixth circuit, 5 feet 3 inches. Seventh circuit, 4 feet 8 inches. The spiral was tightening. I was maybe 4 feet away from him now, close enough to see that his eyes weren't blinking. Close enough to realize that his chest wasn't rising and falling. He wasn't breathing. I tried everything, throwing my full body weight sideways. My legs just adjusted and kept walking. Closing my eyes and trying to walk backward, I stumbled but remained in the pattern. Even trying to fall down deliberately just resulted in a temporary stumble before my body corrected and resumed the circuit. Eighth circuit, 4 feet 1 inch. Ninth circuit, 3 feet 7 inches. "Emily," I shouted, hoping she could hear me wherever she'd been taken. "Emily, if you can hear me, I'm coming." But where was she? Had she been pulled into this same spiral? Was she somewhere ahead of me in this impossible geometry, walking an even tighter circle? 10th circuit, 3 feet 1 inch. 11th circuit, 2 feet 8 inches. I was close enough now to smell him, except there was no smell, no body odor, no cologne, no human scent at all. Just the absence of smell, like a void in the air. My training kicked in despite the impossibility of the situation. I mentally cataloged everything I could observe. The man appeared to be approximately 5'10", medium build, wearing dark jeans and a navy jacket. His hair was brown, his skin pale, his features unremarkable. But the closer I got, the more his appearance seemed to shift slightly, like looking at someone through water. 12th circuit, 2 feet 3 inches. 13th circuit, 1 foot 11 inches. We were almost touching now. I could see that his shoes, generic dark sneakers, weren't wearing down despite his constant walking. I could see that his clothes showed no wrinkles, no signs of movement or wear. And I could see the center of the spiral. It wasn't ground. It wasn't grass or dirt or stone. It was nothing. A perfectly circular void about 18 inches across, like a hole cut out of reality itself. And I was walking directly toward it. 14th Circuit, 1 foot, 7 inches. 15th Circuit, 1 foot, 3 inches. "Karen!" I screamed, hoping somehow my voice would carry across the miles to my wife. "I love you. Tell Sophie I love her." The walking man was inches away now. Up close I could see that he wasn't real, not in any way that mattered. He was like a projection, a placeholder, a lure designed to look human enough to trigger our helping instincts. 16th Circuit, 11 inches. 17th Circuit, 7 inches. I was going to fall into that void. I was going to disappear just like Emily, and no one would ever know what happened to us. Our families would search these mountains forever, wondering how two people could simply vanish on a clear morning on a well-marked trail. But as I approached the final circuit, something deep inside me, the same intuition that had warned me from the beginning, suddenly blazed with new understanding. This thing fed on our desire to help. It appeared as someone who needed assistance, triggered our natural human compassion, and used that against us. But what if I could turn that around? 18th Circuit, 4 inches from the void. Instead of thinking about my own fear, I focused entirely on Emily. Not on saving myself, but on saving her. I thought about her parents, probably wondering why she hadn't called last night. I thought about her research, her bright smile, her whole life ahead of her. Love, not fear. Love as a weapon against something that fed on our compassion. "I'm coming for you, Emily," I whispered, "and I'm bringing you home." 19th Circuit, 2 inches from the edge. I stopped walking. For the first time since entering the spiral, my feet obeyed my conscious will. The compulsion was still there, still pulling at me, but my love for Emily, and for Karen and Sophie, was stronger. The walking man stopped too. For the first time, he looked directly at me. His eyes were empty holes, like looking into deep space. "You can't have her," I said quietly, "and you can't have me." The void at the center of the spiral began to pulse, and I heard something impossible. Emily's voice, faint but clear. "Christopher? Christopher, help me!" She was alive. She was in there, somewhere in that impossible space between spaces. I reached into my pack and grabbed my emergency rope. 50 feet of climbing rope, rated for 500 pounds. If Emily was in that void, I was going to pull her out. The walking man, the thing, began to change. His human disguise fell away like discarded clothing. Underneath was something that hurt to look at directly. Geometry that folded in on itself, angles that existed in too many dimensions. A presence that my human brain couldn't fully process. "Emily, grab onto this," I shouted, throwing one end of the rope into the void. The rope disappeared into the nothingness, but after a few seconds I felt tension on the line. She was there. She was grabbing the rope. I began to pull, using every technique I'd learned in mountain rescue training. Hand over hand, steady pressure, never jerking or rushing. The thing that had been pretending to be a walking man was shrieking now. Not with vocal cords, but with reality itself, like the sound of space-time tearing. Emily's hand appeared first, then her arm, then her terrified face as she emerged from the void like she was climbing out of a deep well. I hauled her up and out, both of us collapsing on the solid ground of the trail. "Christopher," she gasped. "How long was I? Where was I?" "You're okay," I said, helping her to her feet. "You're okay now." The thing was retreating, its human disguise reforming, but I could see the cracks in its performance now. It was wounded, diminished. It began walking its circle again, but the pattern was broken, irregular. "We need to go," I told Emily. "Now." We ran down the trail, not stopping until we reached my ranger station. My radio worked perfectly. My cell phone had full signal. Everything was normal again, as if the last hour had been a nightmare. But Emily's clothes were covered in a substance that defied identification. Not dirt, not organic matter, but something that seemed to exist partially in our dimension, and partially somewhere else. And my GPS unit showed that we'd been gone for 6 hours, even though it felt like one. I never filed a complete report. How do you explain to your supervisor that you encountered a supernatural entity that feeds on human compassion? Instead, I reported that Emily had suffered a brief panic attack and disorientation, and that we'd spent several hours searching for the trail after she'd wandered off path. Emily completed her salamander research the following week with a different ranger. She never spoke publicly about what happened, but she sent me a thank you card that simply said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." The Cataract Falls Trail was officially closed 3 months later, after 2 more hikers disappeared under similar circumstances. The Park Service blamed unstable trail conditions and budget cuts, but I knew better. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I drive back to the trailhead. I sit in my truck and listen to the forest, using the intuition that saved both our lives. And sometimes, just sometimes, I can still hear it out there, walking its endless circle, waiting for the next person who stops to offer help to someone who looks lost. I've learned to trust my gut completely now. When something feels wrong, it probably is. When every instinct screams danger, listen. And most importantly, sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when not to help. Emily got her master's degree and now works for the National Science Foundation. She studies climate change in the Arctic, as far from mysterious forests as she can get. She sends me a Christmas card every year, and we never talk about what really happened that October morning. But I know she remembers, and I know she understands what I understand now. There are things in this world that wear the faces of people who need help, and they're counting on the goodness of the human heart to deliver their next victim. The walking man is still out there, still circling, still waiting. But now I know how to beat him. Love, real love, the kind that risks everything to save someone else but is smart enough to recognize the difference between someone who needs help and something that only looks human. I keep Emily's thank you card in my wallet right next to Sophie's school picture. 2 reminders of what's worth fighting for and what's worth fighting against. My name is Christopher, and I saw Emily disappear into something that should not exist. But I also saw her come back. And that makes all the difference. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like, if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror and comment your theory about what really happened to Emily in that void. I read every single one. My name is Brandon, and I should have listened to the local rangers when they warned me about Section 7 of Blackwood National Forest. But I was new, transferred from the desert parks of Arizona just 3 months ago, and I thought their warnings about the old seamstress were just hazing bullshit meant to spook the outsider. I was wrong. Dead fucking wrong. It was October 13th, 2018, around 2:47 p.m. when I saw Nicole Martinez disappear. Not walk away, not get lost behind trees. Disappear. 1 second she was there on the Whispering Creek Trail, blonde ponytail bouncing as she bent to examine some wildflowers 20 feet ahead of me, and the next second the air itself seemed to fold around her like invisible fabric. The silence that followed wasn't natural. Every bird in a 100-yard radius went dead quiet, like someone had flipped a switch. The October wind stopped moving through the pines. Even my radio quit its background static. In that unnatural stillness, I heard the most horrifying sound of my life. A wet, threading noise like a massive needle being pulled through human skin. "Nicole!" I shouted, sprinting toward where she'd been. My Danner boots pounded the dirt trail, sending up puffs of orange dust. When I reached the spot, there was nothing. No footprints leading away, no broken branches, no sign of struggle. Just that sickly sweet smell hanging in the air, like formaldehyde mixed with rotting flowers. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my Motorola radio. "Base, this is Ranger Stevens. I need immediate backup at grid reference 247-359 on Whispering Creek Trail. We have a missing hiker, Nicole Martinez, 23-year-old female. She just fucking vanished." "Copy that, Stevens. Define vanished. Did she wander off trail?" How do you explain to someone that you watched a person fold out of reality? Negative base. One moment she was visible, the next she wasn't. No trace, no trail. This isn't normal. The temperature around me had dropped at least 15 degrees. My breath came out in visible puffs even though it had been 70 degrees minutes earlier. The forest felt wrong, like something ancient and hungry was watching me through the spaces between the trees. That's when I heard Nicole scream. Not from any direction I could pinpoint, but from everywhere, like her voice was coming through the trees themselves, high-pitched and absolutely terrified. But there was something else mixed in with her scream that made my blood turn to ice water. She was trying to speak, but her words came out muffled and distorted, like her mouth was being held shut. I ran toward the sound, crashing through undergrowth that tore at my uniform pants. Branches whipped across my face, leaving stinging cuts on my cheeks. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it might burst. In my 8 years as a ranger, I'd never heard a scream like that. Pure animalistic terror mixed with something else. Something that sounded like hope being strangled. The screaming stopped as suddenly as it had started. "Nicole," I bellowed into the silent forest. "Where are you?" My voice echoed back empty. Wrong. Like the forest was swallowing sound itself. I pulled out my iPhone. The screen showed no service, even though I'd had 3 bars just minutes before. The GPS was spinning wildly, unable to get a lock. According to the timestamp, it was still 2:47 p.m., exactly the time Nicole had disappeared. My watch showed the same impossible time. Something was seriously fucked up here. I forced myself to think like a ranger instead of a panicked civilian. Missing person protocol. Establish last known position, look for sign, create expanding search pattern. But as I examined the ground where Nicole had vanished, I found something that made my training irrelevant. Tiny holes in the earth, perfectly round, each about the size of a knitting needle. Dozens of them in a rough circle exactly where Nicole had been standing. And from each hole, a single drop of blood had welled up and dried black. The sickly sweet smell was stronger now, mixed with something else, the metallic tang of fear sweat and copper pennies. I knelt down and touched one of the holes with my finger. The blood was still slightly warm. That's when I saw the thread. Hanging from a pine branch about 7 feet off the ground was a single strand of what looked like sinew, pale, translucent, and strong as fishing line. It moved in a breeze I couldn't feel, swaying with hypnotic rhythm. As I watched, more threads began appearing throughout the forest around me, descending from branches like spider webs, only thicker, more organic, more human. My radio crackled to life with a burst of static, then a voice I didn't recognize. Gravelly, ancient, speaking in a sing-song cadence. "The new ranger doesn't know our ways. Fresh meat for the collection. Such pretty stitching he'll make." "Who is this?" I demanded into the radio. "Identify yourself." More static, then Nicole's voice, distorted and weak. "Brandon, help me. I can't move. She's sewing my eyes open. Brandon, please." The transmission cut to static. I was running again, following the threads that seemed to lead deeper into Section 7, the part of Blackwood that even veteran rangers avoided. The canopy grew thicker overhead, blocking out the afternoon sun until I was moving through perpetual twilight. The threads were everywhere now, strung between trees like the world's most horrific art installation. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Brandon's situation? Comment below. The smell hit me first when I found the clearing. It was like walking into an invisible wall of decay, masked by that same sickly sweet formaldehyde stench. My gag reflex triggered immediately, and I had to swallow back bile that tasted like the morning coffee I'd shared with my wife Sarah before leaving for work. That felt like a lifetime ago. In the center of the clearing stood what had once been a massive oak tree, but it had been transformed into something that belonged in humanity's worst nightmares. The bark had been carefully stripped away and replaced with what looked like human skin, stitched together with those same sinew threads. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the collection. Dozens of people, hikers, campers, maybe other rangers, sewn directly into the tree's trunk and branches in grotesque parodies of comfortable poses. Their eyes had been stitched wide open with black thread, their mouths pulled into rictus grins by careful needlework through their cheeks. They were alive. I could see some of them blinking, tears streaming down faces that couldn't move to express their agony. And there, about 10 feet up the trunk, was Nicole. She'd been positioned like she was reading a book, her arms bent at natural angles, but I could see the neat stitching that held her elbows and wrists in place. The threading went through her clothes, through her skin, probably into the muscle and bone beneath. Her hiking boots had been sewn to the bark. Her blonde ponytail was held in place by delicate sutures that disappeared into her scalp. When she saw me, her stitched open eyes widened further and she made a sound behind her sewn-shut lips, a muffled keening that cut through me like broken glass. "Oh, Jesus Christ," I whispered. "Oh, Nicole, what did she do to you?" That's when I heard the footsteps behind me. I spun around to see her, the thing the local rangers had tried to warn me about. She looked like somebody's grandmother, maybe 70 years old, wearing a faded floral dress and carrying an enormous sewing basket. Her white hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she had the kind of face that should have been baking cookies, not this. "Such a lovely addition you'll make, dear," she said in a voice like autumn leaves over concrete. Her eyes were completely black, not just the pupils, but the entire eyeball, like looking into deep water at night. "I've been watching you stumble through my forest, and you have such perfect proportions. You'll fit wonderfully right there next to the young lady." She gestured toward Nicole with a knitting needle the size of a railroad spike. "Let her go," I said, my voice cracking with terror I was trying not to show. People aren't meant to be used like this." The thing that looked like a grandmother tilted her head, and when she smiled, I saw that her teeth had been replaced with sewing needles. Dozens of them, gleaming silver in the dim light. "Oh, but they're so much happier this way," she said, pulling a massive spool of that sinew thread from her basket. "No more wandering around lost and purposeless. Now they're part of something beautiful, something permanent." She took a step toward me, and I saw that her feet weren't touching the ground. She was suspended by thousands of nearly invisible threads that connected to every tree in the clearing. See how content they are? No more worrying about bills or heartbreak or death, just peaceful existence as part of my tapestry. And you, sweet ranger boy, will make such a lovely centerpiece. Behind her, I could see the other victims trying to scream warnings through their sewn mouths. Nicole was making desperate eye contact, tears streaming down her frozen face. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran. Not away from the clearing, toward Nicole. If I was going to die in this nightmare, I wasn't leaving her here alone. The seamstress laughed, a sound like scissors cutting through silk, and suddenly threads shot out from every direction. They wrapped around my ankles, my wrists, my neck. But my momentum carried me forward, and I managed to grab the survival knife from my belt before the threads could pin my arms completely. The blade cut through the sinew like it was butter, and for a moment I was free, scrambling up the horrific tree toward Nicole. Up close, I could see the intricate needlework holding her in place. Each stitch was precise, almost loving in its attention to detail. The thread went through her ranger's jersey, through skin that had turned pale and waxy, disappearing into flesh that had been too precisely penetrated to bleed. "I'm getting you out of here," I promised, starting to cut the threads holding her left arm. She made a frantic noise, shaking her head as much as the stitching would allow. That's when I realized my mistake. The moment I cut the first thread, Nicole's arm fell free, and I saw that the threading wasn't just holding her in place, it was holding her together. Without the support, her arm bones were loose in the skin, the joints disconnected. She'd been completely disarticulated and then sewn back into shape. "Oh, you shouldn't have done that," the seamstress said from directly behind me. I felt the needle go into my spine. The paralysis was instant and complete. Some kind of supernatural toxin flooded my nervous system, and I collapsed against Nicole's motionless form. I could see everything, hear everything, feel everything, but I couldn't move so much as a finger. "There we go," the seamstress cooed, running her needle-toothed fingers through my hair. "Much better. Now we can work without all that struggling and fussing." She produced a needle that had to be 8 inches long and began threading it with that horrible sinew. "I think you'll look lovely right here between the young lady and that nice Park Service fellow from 1987. He's been so lonely." I tried to speak, to scream, to move, but the toxin held me completely helpless. All I could do was watch as she positioned me against the tree, my back against the bark that felt disturbingly warm and yielded like skin. "Now, this will hurt quite a bit," she said, almost apologetically. "But only at first. Once I get you properly sewn in, you'll find it quite comfortable. All my children do." The first stitch went through the back of my uniform shirt, through skin, and deep into the muscle beneath. The pain was beyond description, like being stabbed with molten metal. But worse than the physical agony was the realization that she was right. Part of me did find it comforting. The toxin wasn't just paralyzing my body. It was doing something to my mind, making me want to belong to her collection. She hummed while she worked, some tune I half remembered from childhood. With each stitch, I felt my connection to my old life weakening. My memories of Sarah, of our little house in town, of morning coffee and evening walks, they were getting hazier, less important than the growing contentment of being part of something larger. "That's it, dear," the seamstress whispered as she stitched through my wrist, pinning my arm in a natural position. "Just let go. You're safe now. You're home." By the time she started on my ankles, I almost believed her. But then I saw Nicole's face. Even through the supernatural haze clouding my thoughts, I could see the terror and desperation in her stitched open eyes. She was looking at me, and in that look was everything the toxin was trying to make me forget. The importance of human connection, the value of free will, the fundamental wrongness of what was being done to us. I fought back against the chemical contentment flooding my brain and managed to move my left pinky finger just a fraction of an inch. It was enough to reach the emergency radio beacon on my belt, a device that sent GPS coordinates and a distress signal directly to every ranger station in a 50-mile radius. The seamstress was so focused on her needlework that she didn't notice the tiny LED light that began blinking on my equipment belt. "Almost finished," she murmured, starting to stitch my throat to hold my head in the proper angle. "You're going to look so handsome up here, such a perfect addition to—" The sound of helicopters in the distance made her freeze. Her black eyes went wide with something I hadn't seen before: fear. "No," she hissed, abandoning her needle. "They can't have found us. Not here. Not in my forest." The sound was getting closer. Multiple aircraft and what sounded like ground vehicles as well. My beacon had worked, and apparently the other rangers knew more about Section 7 than they'd let on. This wasn't their first rodeo with the seamstress. She turned to me with a snarl that revealed all those needle teeth, and for the first time, she looked more monster than grandmother. "If I can't have you pretty, I'll just have to have you silent." She picked up a needle the size of a sword and raised it toward my heart. But 40 years of sewing living victims had made her overconfident. She'd never encountered a target with backup. The rifle shot came from the tree line, a perfect headshot that sent the seamstress spinning away from me like a discarded puppet. Black ichor sprayed across the clearing, sizzling where it hit the ground. "Federal agents, secure the area." A dozen rangers in tactical gear flooded the clearing, followed by people in suits who definitely weren't Park Service. One of them, a woman with graying hair and the kind of eyes that had seen too much, knelt beside me and began carefully cutting the stitches holding me to the tree. "Easy, son," she said. "We're going to get you and the others out of here. You did good. That beacon saved not just your life, but probably a dozen future victims." As the paralytic toxin slowly faded from my system, I watched the tactical team carefully removing the other victims from the seamstress's collection. Nicole was unconscious but breathing when they loaded her onto a medical helicopter. They assured me she'd survive, though the psychological trauma would take years to heal. They burned the tree and everything in the clearing except the people. The fire burned green and gave off smoke that smelled like hospitals and funeral homes. Later in the debriefing, I learned that the seamstress had been active in that forest for over a century. She wasn't human, wasn't even technically alive in any biological sense. She was what happened when human obsession with perfection and control merged with something old and hungry that lived in the spaces between trees. They offered me early retirement, full pension, psychological support. I turned it down because someone needs to watch Section 7. Someone needs to make sure she doesn't come back, and that nothing like her ever gets a foothold in Blackwood again. My name is Brandon Stevens, and I'm no longer an outsider ranger. I'm the guardian of the places where nightmares grow, and I'll be damned if I let anything like the seamstress thread her way back into our world. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like, if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror, and comment your theory about what really happened to Nicole in that collection. I read every single one. The forest remembers, and so do I.